Hello and welcome to the two-man power trip of wrestling. Host JP and John Poz with me today. Very special guest, former WWE superstar, ECW, AEW, AIW, GCW. He's been everywhere. He's done it all. Mr. Colin Delaney. Welcome in. How you doing?
Hey man, thanks for having me.
What is going on in your world? What are you up to? I know obviously still out there wrestling like crazy.
Yeah, yeah, still active. I'm in my I just had my 21st wrestling anniversary back in
Whoa.
November. Yeah, so I'm in year 22.
Crazy time flies. My God.
Crazy.
Man, from basically when you think about it, like from '03 to now, that just flies by, man. It can't even. I don't even know what happened in those years. You know what I mean? So
It's
it's so
it's a
crazy.
whole like the yeah, 22 years is a long time, and like the world is different. The wrestling world is I've lived through just when I started, I was driving to shows and handing promoters a VHS tape to try and get booked on shows. I was going to shows using printed off MapQuest directions when I started, because GPSs weren't readily available. I remember Brody Lee had the first GPS I ever saw, and that was like a year or two into wrestling. So, yeah, I've been at this a long time.
Man, it's crazy. Like just to think about that. I remember going to a bunch of like indie shows or Ring of Honor shows, stuff like that. Printing out the map quest and figuring out how to get there, and going to Connecticut and Philly and obviously
I
Jersey and just
I
everywhere.
I went to the very first Ring of Honor show. I drove there. Me and Brody and a couple of our other friends drove just to watch it. That was probably it was before I even started training.
Wow. So you guys went all the way from upstate New York basically to the Murphy Rec Center in Philly. That's not a
Murphy Rec
you know
Center.
Yeah, it's not a close drive. Damn.
No, it was like 5 hours. Yeah, I was in high school. My parents somehow let me do that when I was like 15 years old or whatever.
That's great though. I love that early days ROH. Those were the best. Murphy Rec. What a
Murphy
what a
Rec.
venue.
I
Yeah.
wrestled there for CZW just this past year during Mania Week. They were running Murphy Rec, so I got a hold of them because that for me that's like it's an iconic venue. I know for some people it doesn't mean anything, but for me, I went to the very first show. I went to the tournament show that they did for the four-way to crown the champion. I went to the four-way Iron Man match, which was in like the middle of summer, and the whole place smelled like sauerkraut, and it was like 100 degrees. But I have fond memories of the Murphy Rec Center.
Man, that place used to get hot in the summer. My God, it
Hot.
got boiling hot.
Yeah, I think on that show where they had the four-way Iron Man match, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was like July or August. It was the middle of summer, and for some reason they never had it before, but they had like a hot dog vendor in the venue. And so the whole place just smelled like sauerkraut, and it was like 100 degrees. I couldn't believe that those four guys went in there and did an Iron Man match. It was blowing my mind.
I remember, maybe can't even say, but let's just say too many people were in the building, and they had to finesse their way into letting more people in the building. So I was like, oh my God, like, geez Louise, how many people are going to sardine in this place? You're already hot as hell, and then you're sardining more people in. Just crazy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So when you obviously look back when you got into the business, like you said, this is 20 plus years ago now. Did you ever foresee or did you ever dream about getting the WWE contract, the big WWE contract?
Not really. Honestly, not really. I knew that I was a smaller guy, and honestly, going to those early Ring of Honor shows was what made. I always wanted to be a wrestler, right? And
Yep.
I saw guys like the 1-2-3 Kid, who I eventually worked with X Pac on the Indies, and then you realize he's not small at all. He's gigantic.
No, he's pretty big. Yeah.
But when you were a kid, you were like, he's small. I can do this. And like Mikey Whipwreck, I loved Mikey Whipwreck. He just looked like every other guy, and he was doing it. But then I saw that Ring of Honor show live, and I saw like the Amazing Red, and I was like, he's smaller than I am. And I was like 15, 16 years old at the time. So I was like, I can do this. And maybe not WWE. Maybe that's not what I do, but I can do it, but no. Even when I first started, I never really truly thought that that would be my path. Um, they say if you get into this and you don't hope to one day do it, then why are you doing it? But I guess I just got into it with a little bit of realistic expectations, and I thought that seeing a place like Ring of Honor with smaller guys, because even in 2002, 2003, WWE didn't really have many small guys. WCW had gone out of business. ECW was gone. The landscape was weird. So when I first got in, I was like, "Oh, Ring of Honor! It's like a new alternative." And some of these guys are smaller. Maybe I can work my way up to something like that, or like a high level of whatever that is.
Man, it's just crazy to think like who is small, who isn't small. Like you said, 1, 2, 3 kid at one point. I mean, he's 6'1" or whatever he is. He's not really maybe compared to Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, but yeah, compared to everybody else, he's not small.
Right. Those when you watch some of those like even like late 90s stuff, like you didn't realize how gigantic of a human Billy Gunn was. Like Billy Gunn's like 6'7".
Yeah,
But for
yeah,
my entire life, I thought he was the most normal sized guy because he was just around all these other guys. Or like Midian. Midian is also like a 6'5", 6'6" guy. But on WWE TV in the late 90s, you were like, he's pretty average size. No, he's a gigantic human.
when you just look at those guys, it's insane. Like Duke the Dumpster Drosy was like 6'8" or something. Like I mean, all these guys are like just monsters, and obviously
Normal
Henry
size.
Godwin's a monster. Like right, I mean,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
man, it is like the
The
land of the
Godfather,
Giants.
the Godfather's like 6'8", 6'9". He's just a giant human. But in the day, watching him, because everyone was giant, you're like, oh, that must be normal size. But you thought they were like 6'3", maybe. They were like big, but not like gigantic. They're gigantic.
Man, even a guy like Mick Foley, who maybe you probably think it's big, you don't realize it's that big. 6'4", 6'4.5". Yokozuna,
Yeah,
obviously, weight wise was huge, but height wise was pretty tall too.
sure. Yeah, all of them, everybody, and that's why the 1, 2, 3 kid was small. But when you really think about it, he was like 6'1". He was
Yeah,
6'1", and even back then, he was probably pushing 200 pounds, 210, 220.
definitely. Man, but to think like you're going to be in the land of the Giants, in a not so distant future from that period too. You never even imagined that, right? Like, there's no way. Like, this is not the league for me.
No, I didn't. Um, and then I got there, and then I realized that I at the time I was actually bigger than some guys. Like they did try to avoid putting me with guys who would make me look normal sized. They wanted me to look small, so I was with all those guys. I think Chavo was the first guy who I wrestled who I was taller than. Um, but there's a lot of guys at the time that Jamie Noble, Brian Kendrick. I mean, I'm taller than Shawn Michaels. I'm probably just as tall, or if not taller than Chris Jericho. But uh, yeah, yeah.
If you think about it, right? Like when you're there, and they're trying to figure out like where to put you and stuff. Like, how does that even come to be? Like, how does that even come to fruition? Like, how do you get that spot? How do you get that chance? How do you even get to that area?
So I'm a weird anomaly, I guess you could say, in the WWE history books. Even for that era, even for 2008. Um, I got called by Brody Lee, who was not employed at the time. Um, he was doing extra work, and they needed a smaller guy to get beat up by Shelton Benjamin that night because they were going to start really pushing Shelton as that gold standard gimmick on ECW.
Right.
So they wanted him to be able to throw somebody around, and all the extras that night were Brody. Corey Graves was an extra that night. Michael Tarver was an extra that night. So just every guy they had that were extras was big and wouldn't fit the role of what they were trying to do with Shelton. So Brody called me. I was at work, and he was like, hey, if you get down to the arena right now, you can probably wrestle Shelton Benjamin on ECW. And I just booked it to the arena. I left my job. I just ran out the door and I drove straight there. I worked right up the road. So I went to the arena. They saw me. I don't think they anticipated that the guy that showed up would be my size, because at the time I was probably 145, maybe 150 pounds. Um,
Wow, that's it.
yeah, yeah, I was small. I was pretty light. I was 21. I had just turned 21 at the time. So yeah, and they brought me in the building and they told me that I was going to work with Shelton. I got in the ring and I wrestled around with some of the guys during the day, and yeah, I guess the rest is history. I got in there and I just I thought maybe this might be my only opportunity to even be on TV. You know, I like I said, I never really anticipated being there, but I just thought, what a cool opportunity. I'll just make the most of it, and I'll take everything real big, and I'll make everything look as good as I can. And when I got back through the curtain, I remember Vince McMahon gets out of his seat and he comes over and he shakes my hand and tells me what a great job I did. And then all of the guys, the agents and stuff who were up in Gorilla are now shaking my hand. I'm shaking hands with like Ricky Steamboat and Barry Windham and Dean Malenko, all these guys that I looked up to, and they're all telling me what a great job I did. And I honestly, I didn't think anything of it. I just thought, you know, they're really nice around here. That's very nice of them to you know, tell the guy who gets beat up what a good job he did.
Right.
I thought nothing of it until I got to the end of the tunnel, and Johnny Ace was there, and he's like, "Kid, take a walk with me," and offered me a big bonus for the night, and asked what I was doing next week. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I told him I was working. Yeah, you know, I don't know. I have a 9 to 5. And he's like, "Well, can you be in North Carolina?" I was like, yeah, for sure. I can definitely be in North Carolina. And then he's like, "All right." He tells somebody, "Get the kid a flight, a rental car, and a hotel for next week." And I was like, whoa, what is happening?
Yeah.
Uh,
Wow.
yeah, it just all of a sudden. And so takes me to an office. They get all my information. They set me up with all this stuff, and then I go back to the extras locker room, which I don't know if you ever heard, but the WWE extras locker room is usually like a broom closet with like 6 guys stuffed in it. So
Right.
I walk into this broom closet at the Blue Cross Arena, and all the extras are excited because I just got done, and they were like, "How'd it go? What happened? What happened?" And I just looked at them and I said, "I think I just got a job." And I remember Brody scooping me up and he's just jumping up and down with me in his arms. Everyone's just celebrating. I don't know. It was the craziest night of my life.
That's awesome that he was so happy for you, though. You know, maybe sometimes guys might be jealous or thinking like, "Oh man, I wish that was me," but that's so nice of him.
We came up together. Me and Brody backyard wrestled together when we were kids. You know, we trained together. We were traveling the roads together already at the time. So, and he's the one who called me to do the spot. You know, so yeah, no, I think everyone was pretty excited.
It's so weird though. Like you thinking you're there for extra work, then all of a sudden Johnny Yates it's basically, and you do a great Johnny Yates impersonation. He's basically giving you a job.
Yeah, yeah. Just I couldn't. As the story goes, I guess I heard the weeks after that while I was in the ring, Vince McMahon was in the headset producing or whatever he does with his headset, and he's just saying, who is this kid? That's that's how you that's how you bump. That's how you sell. Who is this kid?" So I guess Vince really liked me. He really liked what I did, and yeah, I always had good interactions with him. I mean, he was essentially the reason why I I got hired. He was the reason why they brought me back.
Man, it's interesting that Vince is paying that much attention to the extras, if you will, right? I mean, does that normally happen?
Well, I mean, he's at least when I was there, he would sit up in Gorilla in his own seat and he would watch the show and he would, I'm sure he was giving cues to the announcers and to the refs when he would have to or whatever. Uh, he was very hands on. Um, I know certain shows he didn't do, but this is still not early in ECW, but early enough in ECW where I think he was still very hands on with it.
He obviously, not talking about what's going on today with him, but he, can be a little crazy in the headset, a little, a little eccentric, right? I mean, and you hear him say stuff, but that's kind of cool that he's being so positive towards you. Obviously the boss of the company at this point, the man that runs the show, but he's being so positive about you, and you're not really one of the contracted talent, really. You're just, there to help.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the spot was just supposed to be the spot that night, and then because I was the size that I was, and it was, and I did as well as I did, that he saw something. He saw we can use this. Um, so yeah, I mean, not speaking about anything that he's doing currently, but
Yeah.
he uh, he always had his finger on the pulse there, and he was always seeing what was going on and and always trying to make it better. And I mean that company, whether you like it or not, it became what it became because of him. He was very hands on, and you hear all these crazy horror stories about him shooting down stuff in meetings and being kind of a terror at times. But an eye for it. He had a vision, and that's how I came to be.
When you look at right what's going on at that point with you, just like the selling, the bumping, and he's noticing it, and he's really taking, like notice basically that, hey, this guy knows what he's doing. And where does that kind of come from? Is that just your training? Is that just what you thought? Because a lot of wrestlers today, for some reason, that kind of all that stuff goes out the window. The selling and the bumping, it seems like it's not as prevalent maybe as it should be or could be.
Yeah. So my training for sure. I at that point I was five 5 years into wrestling. I'd been wrestling for 5 years. Uh, so I had a decent understanding of things. And in that role, I just understood what I was supposed to be. I was supposed to be the guy who just got beat up and made him look good. There was no, I don't know. It just was natural for me to do that. I mean, I grew up, my favorite wrestlers growing up, like I loved Mr. Perfect. I love Tully Blanchard is like my favorite wrestler of all time. Just classic sellers, just guys who sell and really put the moves over, and sometimes in an over the top manner. I always loved that. So um, when it came time, I just that's what I defaulted to. But at the end of the day, also that's the lifeblood of what pro wrestling is. Um, that's what separates what we do from a lot of other things is the sell. That's what elicits emotion out of people. Um, it's not the moves. Nobody knows what a body slam feels like. It's when we elicit emotion from it that uh, you know, it brings emotion out of people.
Obviously, you're still wrestling, but do you have a sense that the selling kind of went away a little bit? Because even on TV, you see sometimes people just want to go to the next move and maybe get a pop or whatever. I feel like the selling isn't as good as it once was. Like you mentioned, Perfect, my God, Perfect, and Brett and all those guys, like the greatest sellers of all time.
For sure, for sure. Mr. Perfect Bret Hart from SummerSlam is still my favorite match of all time. I watch it at least once a year. I love that match. Um, I've loved it since I was a kid. But yeah, yeah. I've been training guys for the past 10, 12 years now. And it's tough. It's tough to get that down. Anyways, figuring out your sell and your emotion behind these things isn't an easy thing to grasp. And also, because of the way wrestling is now, guys are, I feel like, a bit quicker to want to go to cool moves than they probably were 20 years ago. Um, Back then, you learned the basics and you learned how to sell and how to work, and then uh, you you figured out what a move set would be for yourself later. Nowadays, I feel like guys learn to bump and run the ropes, and they're like, all right, how do I springboard? Or, what's a Canadian
Yes.
destroyer look like? And you're like,
Yes.
we'll figure it out eventually. But
It is so true because I feel like I don't know why it just like almost skipped over. It's like, wow, they didn't really sell that. That's odd. And they think it's better work, but it's really not. The selling is kind of what makes everything go round and what makes everything work.
everybody's so fast and everybody wants to move very fast. And
Yep.
also, if you look at like the most highly rated matches of even last year or the year before, they most of them probably involve Will Ospreay.
Yeah.
And Will Ospreay is super duper crazy talented. Um, so I feel like a lot of people see these crazy matches and they're like, oh, I want to do that, but they skip over the fact that Will is great at selling and he's great at eliciting emotion. They just see all the fantastic things that he does and they want to do that. Um, but without the emotion, without the selling, without the other fantastic things that Will does, it's really not the same.
It is weird that people kind of don't mention Osprey and selling because they love the offense stuff. But yeah, he's a complete wrestler. He knows what he's doing out there. Yeah, he sells a lot.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, hands down, he's one of the best wrestlers in the world, and you don't become that by just doing flips and athletics. You don't. It's not. That's not what makes a good wrestler. That's not what makes you attach to Will Ospreay's match. But because he is so fantastic with all the things that he does, people think that that's what they're attached to. They're not. They're attached to his emotion and uh, all of that stuff. The real pro wrestling stuff. Like you, uh, uh, for example, even back in the day, like I would use this one as an example sometimes. Uh, Randy Savage, Ricky Steamboat is held in very high regard with most people as one of the greatest wrestling matches of all time from
Definitely.
WrestleMania. If you went out there and did that exact match spot for spot, it it's not going to feel the same without the emotion of Randy Savage and Ricky Steamboat. It's not. So that's the example. You could do all the same moves in the exact same order with the exact same timing, but without the emotion and the sell and all of that, it's not the same match.
Totally, totally agree. And in the same vein as Osprey, Omega, which is interesting. People were like, "Oh, he's a flippy guy." It's like, not really. I mean, he does that stuff, but he's really seller. And when people were kind of like ripping on Omega Okada, like, "Oh, that's not the kind of match." No, that's like those guys are like the pure selling, old school kind of. I know they throw in a lot of cool moves and stuff, but that's like an old school type guys right there. In an instance, maybe with a new school flavor, but definitely selling and Okada especially works very slow and really gets stuff over. So yeah, people kind of mistaken in some of these guys.
And you have to look at the where those matches are happening, right? Because uh, there is a different set of rules, I guess you could say, in Japan, and not like actual like pinfall rules and disqualification rules, but like moves hit differently there. Moves feel differently there. There's a different style and feeling of what they are going for and what they're trying to accomplish. So, uh, yeah, it's I don't know. I feel like WWE gained so much popularity that people believe that that is pro wrestling, but it's not. Wrestling has been going on in Japan for 100 years, and it looks different. Wrestling has been going on in Mexico for 100 years, and it looks different. Wrestling in England, different set of rules, different parameters, different point to it, you know, and that's also wrestling. Uh, just because it doesn't look like Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes doesn't mean it's not wrestling. You're just not probably understanding what they're going for, or what the rules and the parameters and the the idea that they're going for is.
Very true. And to go back to your SummerSlam '91 for a second, I'll throw you one maybe a little better that I actually like even more. Bret versus Perfect, King of the Ring '93. Love that
So
match.
so I do love the 93 King of the Ring match. But just like we were talking about earlier, it doesn't have the same emotion. The
Mm.
91 SummerSlam match has the perfect emotion. When,
Bret's
pun not
parents are
intended,
there.
Bret's parents are there. Perfect goes to leave. Bret goes to pull him back and rips his singlet in half. Perfect
Yeah.
is doing everything he can to hold on to that Intercontinental title. It's a masterpiece. It really, truly is a masterpiece.
And he's got that back injury too. And when he puts that sharpshooter in, he's tapping out quick,
Yeah.
and Brett even cinches it in even further. So
He
good.
was
Yeah.
avoiding it. He was avoiding it. Yeah, it's that match. I do love the 93 match. I really do. Um, it's just, the 91 match, it has just everything.
And the MSG crowd too, which is awesome.
Yeah, yeah. 91's for me it's the best.
I do love '93 though. I love King of the Ring. I love
Sure,
their back and forth. Yeah.
sure.
So when you're looking at it, right, in the grand scope of things, going back to WWE, and you're there, and Johnny Ace has got you on the road, and Johnny Ace is getting your flight for the next town. Is it official you're under contract, or no, not yet? He's getting you dates and stuff, but you're not under contract as of yet. How does that work?
So when I went to North Carolina. I wrestled. I think Big Daddy V was the next week there, and yeah, it was just kind of the same that night. I got kicked a bonus, and I got asked if I could come back next week, and it kind of went like that for about a month and a half, until I had run through, I think, all of the all of the larger men on the roster, and we were in Houston, Texas. I was scheduled to do a handicap match with Miz and Morrison. I wrestled Khali, I think, the week before, and yeah, they pulled me to the office, and they said they wanted to offer me a contract. But up until then, every week I would show up not knowing. I went to the extras locker room to change. I did the same thing I did every week, and they would ask me to come back next week and hand me flight and travel information.
Wow, it's just what a whirlwind. I mean, geez, it's just like you're just doing your job, selling, you're wrestling all the giants again. You're wrestling all these literally absolute monsters. Khali, Mark Henry, Big Daddy V, Big Vis. I mean,
Kane.
geez, Kane. Yeah, like, wow, you're wrestling literally just gigantic guys, and you're basically getting your ass kicked, and you're just selling for these guys.
Yeah, and then I would I would fly out on like a Monday night usually, uh, and then I would fly home Wednesday morning. And a lot of times I would go into work for a half day. I would get off of the road and I would go back to my regular job, because I wasn't going to just quit my job. I didn't have another job lined up in my head. I was just getting flown in every week, and my job at the time was very understanding. I mean, clearly they could see my excuse, if they turned on the Sci-Fi Network, so they weren't like, he's lying. His grandma's not really sick. Uh,
Yeah.
they could turn
Yeah.
on TV and see it. So I had a lot of leeway, but there were literally days I would wake up, I would fly home early on a Wednesday, I would get back into Rochester at like noon, 1 o'clock, and I would go to work for the last bunch of hours of the day, and then work the rest of the week out.
Just what a crazy time. Remember, I mean, I
Yeah,
can't even imagine it for you because it's kind of unexpected. Well, not kind of, it is unexpected.
even when I got the contract, I still was like, I'll still work here for a bit, right? Because I didn't know how long it was going to last. I didn't know what I was doing. I think I left the job a couple weeks after that, but yeah, I didn't know. I was just living week to week. Even when I was under contract, I still was. I didn't know. I was just happy to be there, smiling, showing up, doing my job, going home. You know, I wasn't like, yeah, I'm a big superstar wrestler now.
Does Johnny Ace get you the contract? Is that the one who makes you sign, seal, and deliver it?
So yeah, Johnny pulled me into his office and gave me the contract. I still always have this feeling he didn't want to give me a contract. Um, I think he was bringing. I think Vince wanted them to give me a contract kind of right away. I think Vince was like, sign the kid, and I think Johnny didn't see the the vision. So I think he just dragged his feet and was like, "We'll just keep bringing him to TV, and eventually Vince will uh, stop being enamored with this kid, and then I'll be a hero because I didn't sign him, so we don't have to release him, so we don't have to, pay him for 90 more days." I think I don't know. He didn't. I don't think Johnny was the biggest fan of me. Him as well, being like a 6'5" former wrestler, you know, uh, I think that's what he saw wrestling to be also. So I think he dragged his feet to sign me in the first place, and then yeah, when it came time to release people, uh, I think I was an easy choice for him.
So not a Johnny Ace fan, I take it.
Not really, no. Not really, no. I don't think he was a big Colin Delaney fan, so uh, I give that energy right back.
When you're there, right, and you get the contract and goes forward, you're getting a vibe from him that he didn't really want to do it, but Vince wanted you there, wanted you under contract. So, like, when you report, like, who do you report to, or you just maybe go around him?
You don't really go around him. He was a very difficult man to uh, reach or get his ear. He was that kind of guy. Um, Mark Carano was the guy below him. I liked Mark a lot. He was very nice. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, you would try to get Johnny's ear, but it was not the easiest thing in the world to do.
So the first kind of storyline they give you, besides you getting your ass kicked by giants every week, right? Armando, Alejandro, Estrada, you guys kind of have a feud for a contract, so to speak.
So yes, I think the Tommy Dreamer thing was before that, actually. I think I did the thing with Tommy before Armando Estrada, and then Estrada leads into my heel turn on Tommy. I think. I don't know. It's 16 years ago. So,
Yeah, yeah, I think you get your first win against him, but you were teaming with Dreamer kind of before that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I come out of beating all the or beating, yeah, right. I come out of wrestling all the giants, and I do the handicap with Miz and Morrison. That leads to Tommy taking me under his wing, and that was especially cool for me. I was a super ECW fan, and I was a super Mikey Whipwreck fan. Um, so to essentially be told that on the new ECW I was the new Mikey Whipwreck was everything to me. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. I remember the first time I met Mick Foley when I was at SmackDown because he was doing commentary for SmackDown at the time, he was like, "Oh, hey, Colin, it's good to meet you. You're the new Mikey." And he was like, "Sorry, you couldn't get a better cactus," because Tommy was there with me.
Yeah, yeah.
I always thought that was fun. That was cool. But no, and Tommy Dreamer was one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. So the fact that I got paired with Tommy Dreamer, with the guy from ECW, was was crazy. And then we got away from that, and then we went into the thing with Estrada, which I, I had a lot of fun with that. I liked him. I liked Estrada a lot.
Did they actually tell you that you're going to be Whipwreck, or is that Dreamer telling you that, or something, or is that somebody within WB saying that?
It was kind of just the word around the water cooler. It was kind of just like I don't think they ever really spoke it on TV, but people were like, "Oh yeah, you're the Mikey of this ECW." Um, but yeah, Dreamer would say it, and like I said, when I first met Mick Foley for the first, I say for the first time, but I actually waited outside of Walmart for like 12 hours to meet Mick Foley when I was a kid. I camped out in front of it. Uh, but no, when I met him for the first time in WWE, he said it to me, and I was like, "Whoa!" And he was a part of Mikey's ECW journey, so I was like, "Man, how crazy!"
A very, very interesting kind of dynamic there for sure. When you actually beat Estrada, right? Is that like a legit thing? Like he's really getting a contract, because it seems like eerily similar to like when you actually get to get a contract. You know what I mean? Like it actually seems like they were doing a little bit of like realism on TV there.
Yeah, because I didn't have a contract for a very long time. I mean, by the time I did the Estrada match, I had a contract for like 2 months or something. But yeah, I guess they kind of played off of what was really going on. Um, and then I had to wrestle more big guys, and that was fun.
Yeah, what was up with that? They just love the way you sold versus these big guys. You made them look even better. Is that kind of the gist of it?
I guess so. I mean, they did, uh, they didn't. I mean, they had smaller guys, but not smaller guys who they can just throw away and let get eaten alive by Mike Knox for the day, or like there was a different dynamic of some of those guys who are established wrestlers getting beat up by big guys, or me who literally weighed probably 150 pounds getting smushed by the largest people they could find.
Do you think that like them doing that was almost like this is great for me, but or were you thinking like kind of makes me look like I'm gonna get destroyed, like I have no chance? You know what I mean? Like there's like a fine line, or does it not matter?
It does not matter, especially not to me at 21 years old, doing the only thing I ever loved on national TV. I was happy to do whatever they wanted me to do, week in and week out. They could they could have had me getting beaten up by the smallest guys on the roster. I'd have still been a-okay.
Sometimes like back in the day, like oh, if I'm jobbing on WF Superstars and I'm supposed to be on NWA TV, I don't want to be losing on TV. Like that. Nobody said that in your ear, like, hey, you don't want to be losing too much, pal, or anything like that.
No.
You could have cared less.
No, I could have cared less. I was just happy to be there. I was just yeah, I was like living a childhood dream. I was living in some fantasy world that I never thought truly would have existed in my life.
The weird thing to me is the heel turn. Why would they turn like the sympathetic, guy that's, the selling and really get these other big guys over? Why would they turn him heel? Why?
Honestly, I think it was just for a finish on pay-per-view. I think that they were going for the shock value of it on pay-per-view with no plan going forward. I because I did ask questions at the time. Hey, what should I do after this? Should I cut my hair? Should I get new gear? Should I look different? Should I start trying to get bigger? Should I get tan? What should I do? And they were like, nothing. Just do exactly what you're doing. And I was like, okay. that makes me feel like you guys don't really have a plan for me, which is disheartening. Um, but I remember I turned heel on Tommy, Great American Bash, and then the next ECW I wrestled Tommy in Philly after I turned on him, and he beat the crap out of me. Uh, and I had a live in-ring promo, which is the first time I really had one of those. Before it was just bouncing stuff back and forth off of Taz. But I had like a full script of stuff to memorize. It was my first time ever doing that, and I felt I did pretty good. And I got to the back after my match with Tommy, and Ricky Steamboat pulled me aside, and he was like, "Hey, I just want to let you know, I talked to Arn Anderson, and we were talking, and we thought when they were going to turn you heel that was kind of a death sentence for you, that you were pretty much on your way out after this. But tonight you showed that you can be a heel in this company." And I thought that was the fact that Ricky Steamboat and Arn Anderson are talking about me at all is crazy, but B, that they believed in what I had done that night and believed that I could do it was everything. I remember I left those tapings just beaming. I was couldn't have been happier.
Wow, what a compliment from two of the greats, and obviously Steamboat. Jeez, very, very high praise for you there. Can't complain about that.
No, yeah, two guys who I idolize. So
That's funny though that he's kind of thinking what maybe other people think too. Like, why the heel turn? Maybe he's on the way out. Why? Like, what in the world? And boom, good promo. Get good at taking some beating from the babyface who's getting his revenge. So like a little bit of surprise to the office. It seemed like too.
yeah, I could. Yeah, I mean the the opposite role was still something that I could play. I I understand how to that there's a difference between how you sell as a good guy and how you sell as a bad guy. Um, so just kind of tried to switch it up that night and tried to show the other side of it, and I guess it worked, or at least it worked for a minute.
Right, exactly. Now, do they ever explain to you what the heel turn was supposed to be? Ever? Do they ever like kind of go over that with you?
No, which is why I think that they didn't really have a plan. I honestly think it was booked for the shock value of the turn on pay-per-view, and then they just thought we'll figure it out later. Because yeah, like I said, I asked, I had asked the following week too, like, hey, should I do something different? Is there any talk of anything? And they're like, nope, we're gonna put you with Mark and Tony now. And I was like, okay, do you want me to do something to fit in with them better? Nope, just keep doing you. And I was like, okay, they have no they
Yeah,
have
no idea.
no real idea. They're just flying by the seat of their pants here.
When you are a heel, right, and you're doing this and you're getting over as a heel, is there any sort of like thinking of like a push or I'm going to start rattling some wins here? Or, you know what I mean? We're going to turn this thing around or nope?
I don't know. I just went to work with a smile on my face and did what they told me. All I could do is the my thought process was kind of, you know, I got here doing this. I'm just going to keep doing the best job I can in the role that they put me in, and hopefully that works and that translates and that keeps me here, I guess.
So obviously, you're like we mentioned, you're going to get released. You're kind of working your way out. The little Matt Hardy thing going on, right? I mean, there's a bunch of different things going on. Are you sensing the release? Are you sensing that it's coming?
No, no, I'm not. I mean, I wrestled Tommy in an Extreme Rules match on ECW on a Tuesday and then got released on a Friday. Um, And looking at the roster at the time, and they started releasing guys earlier that week, or like after that TV, I think Wednesday or Thursday releases started happening. But a lot of the releases were guys who were not on TV really, or guys who weren't getting used. So that all made sense to me. And then when I got the call on Friday, I was like, damn, I'm getting released.
So you were shocked.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, I mean, uh, I was just on TV on Tuesday. Most, I mean, I can't say for absolute sure, but I do remember in the time looking at the other releases, and a lot of those guys were like wrestling in dark matches most of the time, or off TV, or you know what I'm saying? They weren't in angles on TV. So no, I didn't think I was going to get released. I was just in an Extreme Rules match with Tommy Dreamer on ECW on Tuesday. No, I think I might be the only person in that set of releases who was actively on TV every week.
Very, very strange the way that happens, because it's almost like, why did they turn him heel? And you know what I mean? Then it's like, why did they release him? After they just turn him heel, now he's feuding with Dreamer. It's just weird. Very, very
There
weird.
wasn't a week that I wasn't on some form of WWE TV in the 8 months I was there. So like, I don't know. That's why I didn't see my release coming. If I had been off for a month, or if I was just
Right.
going to TV and eating catering for a month, yeah, I would have been like, oh, I'm probably getting released. But I wasn't. I was working every week. I was wrestling every week. I was in angles and storylines on TV every week.
And fresh off of basically a TV main event on Tuesday night as well.
Right, right. Fresh off of like a built up match in a story on TV. So no, I did not think I was going to get released. At
What
least
was
not then.
right, right. What was the
I knew it wasn't
reason
going to
though?
last forever. Oh, the same reason they give everybody. Creatively, we had nothing for you, which is it's written in the contract. It's a line that they can deliver, and they can release you whenever they want. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And that's just the line they have to say. Whether it was, they'll never tell you the real reason. They won't. At least I don't believe they will. They wouldn't tell me, I'm sure. And I mean, honestly, that could be true. But if creatively you have nothing for me, then you're not trying, because I was literally on TV last week.
Yeah, 2 days ago. Yeah, yeah. Weird.
2 days ago, creatively, we had stuff for you. Today, we don't, and we're going to release you. That seems like lack of trying, or there has to be just something. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Creatively, we have nothing for you, but you were in an angle on TV 2 days ago doesn't really jive completely.
100%. Very, very strange. You do, though, however, you return, 9 years later, whatever it was, many years later, against your buddy Brody and the Bludgeon Brothers.
Yeah. It's crazy. That's crazy.
How did it come about?
I was, after I got released, I just kind of did independence and did what I was doing, and never really tried to reach back out. And then I'd started thinking about it, and I was, approaching 30 at the time. And I was like, I was in much better shape. I was feeling like maybe I could make a run again. And so I talked to some people, and I got booked for just doing extra work again, just like old times. And I went, and I did all the things that they have you do during the day. And after I got done with my workout, they were like, hey, we want to put you in a match tonight, if that's okay. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And they said, we want you to work the Bludgeon Brothers. And I was like, let's go. Come on, let's do it. And I remember John wasn't at the arena yet, and I'm at ringside still, and he just comes running up, and he was like, what are you doing here? And I was like, I'm wrestling you, apparently.
It's awesome.
It was awesome. Yeah. I, it was like deja vu. It, I got back through the curtain after doing that match, and Vince gets out of his chair and he shakes my hand and he tells me and my partner what a great job we did and that they want to give us bonuses for the night. And I was like, is this happening again? And I had talked to Brody a bunch at the time, and it kind of looked like it was happening again. They brought me back the next week, or I think, yeah, it was the next week. Um, and there was plans for me to kind of debut on 205 Live. Because when I went out there to do the Bludgeon Brothers match, I had talked to some people and they were like, are they going to acknowledge that you are who you are? And I said, I don't know. They haven't really said anything to me. I'm just going to go out there and do the best I can. And then somebody came around. They're like, yeah, they're not going to acknowledge that you were on ECW or anything. We're just going to go with it and just let you wrestle. I said, okay, that's fine. And then after we got done, they came and grabbed me and they were like, hey, we're actually going to do a thing and acknowledge that you were on ECW and blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, that's fine. And then, yeah, they asked if I could come back next week. And from my understanding, the plan was that Kenta or Hideo Itami was going to debut against me. And I was going to have a promo segment in the ring, just like I used to have with Taz, kind of talking about how, you know, now there's a place for a guy my size. And, now I think I can make a real run at it. And then the thought was that I was going to kind of do the same thing I did on ECW, but just get beat up by these cruiserweights for a couple weeks until I start stringing some wins. That was the idea that was told to me. And I was told to come back next week. And then I got to TV, and during the day they were like, hey, they're actually going to cut your talking part. You're still going to wrestle Hideo Itami. They're just going to cut out the part where you reintroduce yourself. I said, okay, well, what does that mean? They were like, basically means not right now. We like you, but not right now. And I said, that's fine. So I did the match with Hideo Itami, and I had a blast. I'm a big fan of Kenta, always have been. So I was excited to do it, and I thought all of it came off great. And they asked me if I'd come back in a couple weeks. I think it was like 2 months or something. And I did some more stuff on 205 Live, and it's kind of seemed like it was still kind of steering in that direction. And I was talking to people about maybe getting back in, maybe going down to NXT, and then it just kind of kept getting halted or stopped, and then it just kind of went away.
Leo Rush, I think it was, right?
Yep. I worked Leo Rush, and then I came back again, and I did. I think it was like I was in the ring ready for a match with Tozawa or something, and then someone came out and jumped us and like took the ring, so it never really had a match, but still went out there for a match on 205 Live. And I was bummed because I liked 205 Live, and I have a lot of friends who were working in 205 Live at the time who were excited that maybe I would be there and be on the crew with them. So it was a bummer. And then I've always kind of wanted to go down to the Performance Center and NXT and all that stuff. So yeah, it's kind of a bummer. It was a bummer at the time.
But they never reached back out. Obviously, the replay of what happened in '08 is not happening. They never reached back out. Like, hey, we still like you. We're interested. It was just never worked out that way.
So kind of every time I went, they kind of gave me a little bit of, I don't know, a little bit of false hope, maybe, like, not false hope, but they were there were people there advocating for me and trying to get me back in the door. And then it just kind of kept getting stopped. It kept being like, no, not right now. And then it was like, come back in 2 months, come back in 3 months, come back in 2 months. And then finally, it just didn't seem like it was going to happen. And I had other things going on, and I was like, hey guys, I can't just keep coming out for these shots. So –
Doesn't make sense.
well, right. It just didn't seem like it was going to happen. It seemed like I was always getting to the – I had the right people, it seemed, advocating for me and trying to get me back in. And every time was the same stopping block. So I just looked at it and said, okay, well, this person who is of high influence doesn't have any interest in me, even though other people are advocating for me, and it seems like it would make sense, or it seems like something that would work. So I just didn't want to keep spinning my wheels and going back into it every couple months, because it's tough. It's not like you're. It wasn't like they were in town. It was like,
Right,
hey,
right.
can you drive to Detroit and Chicago on a Monday and a Tuesday? And it's like, I I can, sure, but I do have a life,
Right.
that I'm trying to live, and if you guys really aren't interested, then I probably should stop spinning my wheels driving to all these towns if at the end of the day it's still just going to be a no.
Gotcha. Very true. So as we head towards the wind down, head towards the finish, was there ever any possibility of signing with AEW? Because I know you did a few shots for AEW.
So I don't know. I mean, I I got brought in to do AEW before the pandemic, and I teamed with Sean Spears against Trent and Chuck Taylor, who are both very good friends of mine. And it was a real match. It was like a 15-minute tag match, albeit on dark. It was really a showcase, and they really wanted me to get some stuff in and look good. And I talked to some people afterwards, and there was, I wouldn't say like anything on the table or anything, but there was not off the table. There was some interest. And then pandemic hits pretty soon after that. And then in the pandemic era, everything was down in Jacksonville. And I guess in hindsight, I could have taken myself to Jacksonville and maybe done some shots and maybe had a good chance at it, because a lot of those guys who went down and did that stuff did wind up getting jobs and wind up getting some decent spots and looks. But we were in a global pandemic, and I think it was kind of a weird time for everybody. So I just did what I was supposed to do and stayed home. And then post pandemic, their roster had like a million people on it. But Tony Khan is a super cool dude and a huge wrestling fan. I remember when I was first introduced to him, he knew exactly who I was. He knew exactly what I had done. He said to me, he was like, I think he was a big WWE ECW fan. Who knew? And he was like, oh yeah, and we have you on the show, and we've got Archer, and he was just listing off all these dudes who had done WWE ECW stuff, and I was like, that's so crazy that this guy who's a billionaire and owns this company is just cutting it up and excited about WWE ECW.
Right.
When I wrestled Wardlow on the one Dynamite, it was because Tony Khan had the idea for me to wrestle Wardlow at like 4 a.m. one night, and I got called that morning at like 7 a.m. asking if I could be in Jacksonville, and I was like, if you can get me to Jacksonville, sure. And they arranged a last minute flight down there and all the accommodations just so I could wrestle Wardlow. So, yeah, I don't know if there was ever any super real interest, but I'm sure I could have made some. If the pandemic didn't hit, I feel better about it. And maybe if I had taken the initiative and brought myself to Jacksonville, maybe in that time, because it was still fresh. But once the pandemic hit and there was like a year and change between them seeing me, it was felt a little further from what was possible.
Right. What an interesting and wild ride for you, for sure. Man, it's funny, like WWF, WWE, a little bit of AEW mixed in. So what's next for you? What do you got coming up?
I don't know. I don't know. I help run a school here in Rochester called Ground Zero. Um, Still wrestling on the independents, still uh, chipping away. I love wrestling. I don't see that ever changing for me. Once again, I'm in my 22nd year, but I am only 38 years old, which is
Yep.
I've been wrestling for well over more than half of my life now. Um, and yeah, still at it, still enjoying it, still plugging away. I think that's it. I think I'm just the same as I ever was. Just wrestling and enjoying it.
Where could everybody find you, social media and otherwise?
Yeah, I see you put the tag down there. I didn't know that that's what I was supposed to put in that little bar
Oh,
underneath.
yeah. Yes.
Uh, on Twitter, I'm at extremely cute. I got on the Twitter game pretty early. Sorry, X. I got on the X game pretty early, so random names like at extremely cute were still available. Fun fact: the first tweet from the WWE Twitter account is about me. That's a true fact. Uh,
Wow.
the very first thing the WWE official Twitter account ever tweeted was something about Mark Henry destroying me. So, but I'm
I did
at
not know
extremely
that.
cute
Wow.
on
Live,
there. Yeah.
live on in infamy. Wow. Awesome.
weird, yeah, weird trivia question. On Instagram, I'm at extremely Colin. Um, that's about it. I'm not a big social media guy. I'm pretty, uh, I'm pretty tech stupid, so I don't really mess with it too much. But yeah, feel free to follow me. I usually post what events I got coming up and other stuff. So
All right. Awesome stuff. Colin Delaney, thank you so much for all the time. Really appreciate it.
hey man, I appreciate you